Johnny MacKay from Children Collide. Welcome back to Australian Musician.
G'day.
It's been a while. It's been about 11 years, I think, since Australian Musicians had an interview with you. How you been keeping?
Well, a bit's happened in that time. I guess I've become all different kinds of musician in that time. Back then I was probably mainly playing rock music, which I'm back to doing again, I guess.
You're living in New York. You probably told the story a few times before, but how'd you end up there?
Well, around 2012, we were putting out our third record, and I just honestly felt a lot of pressure and stress around that. And there was a lot of kind of weird negative energy. And we'd beat Australia and we'd tour or do something, and then there'd be like this 2 or 3 months of downtime. And eventually I'm like, I need to be somewhere else for that. And so I decided to move to New York, came over, and then just didn't leave. I just thought I'd try it out, and then didn't leave. And then somewhere in that 2 years after that, where I thought the band would keep going, it just sort of stopped existing without me wanting that to happen. I'd kept writing for our next record, but then so I turned around one day and said, I think the band's over.
Obviously not, because there's a new album coming out. But
yeah.
What part of New York are you in?
Right now I'm in Bed-Stuy in Brooklyn.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And a good area? You got some favourite bars and venues around there?
Look, I'm just crashing with my friend at the moment, actually, because I'm sort of just here for a few weeks. I'm making working on a couple of records here, working on a Fascinator record, and then this other more like ambient, adventurous kind of thing for a VR project. So I'm just here doing that and catching up with people, and partied a bit too much the first week. I need to chill out a bit now. So I'm not actually living here at the moment. I'm just sort of passing through. But yeah, I used to live in Williamsburg a lot, and I've got a bunch of favorite bars there. But of course, a lot of them have gone from COVID as well. Yeah.
Well, as we said, there is a new Children Collide album coming out. It's called Time Itself. Why did you decide it was time for a new album?
It's funny because it wasn't really a conscious thing. A bunch of events just kind of colluded to make this happen. And the final piece, I had a bunch of songs kind of burning a hole in my hard drive that I'd written over the years. Some of them at the start of the band, some of them for the third album that didn't make it, some of them after that with the idea of a fourth album in mind. And then a bunch of them happened like, weeks before the album or months before the album was actually recorded. But Jody, who started managing me as Fascinator, just said to me one day, she's like, why don't you do another Children Collide album? And so with her support, I felt kind of confident to do that. And Ryan was into it, and we got together and did it.
Yeah.
We did it over here, actually.
Yeah. Tell me about Chelsea Wheatley, how she became part of the band.
Chelsea Wheatley's a dear friend of mine who I've known since probably when the band was first starting. She used to kick around Melbourne in a punk band called the Gingers, and she was the bass player and singer. And then years later, she's done this pop project where she does choreographed dancing and stuff. And she's like this amazing dancer. Like if you see her on a dance floor, she just slays it. And what's really funny is Heath kind of had this amazing combination of being sort of punk and being a dancer, like a good dancer on stage. He'd have to do it to avoid my guitar and not get hurt. So anyway, when Heath decided he didn't want to do it, I thought, who could I get? And she was just the first person that popped into my head. And I was just praying she'd say yes. And she said yes. And now it's like, it's a cute little fun family. It's mainly them taking the piss out of me on tour, but it's good vibes.
Yeah. Time Itself. Well, why did that become the title track of the album?
Well, I think it's a song title, and which is actually what happened on Monument, but I don't know if that song ended up on the album. But I was just thinking about, as we got closer to naming the album, like we made the record, we just started to put it out, and then I just thought about how music's quite timeless. Well, I think good music is timeless, and music is kind of this idea and expression that happens that you're kind of repeating live in a different way every time you play live, or when someone listens to it, they're having their own kind of experience to it. And it kind of exists outside of time in a weird way, but at the same time, it's measured in time. So I'd named a song that, and I liked that little phrase, and then it just sort of made sense with the kind of nature of this album and the way it kind of extends kind of beyond any one particular period of time. But I think all good art should, like, nothing of its time is timeless, and not many things that are timeless are of their time. So I've got a lot to say on time. I guess that's why.
There's 12 tracks on the album. Did you have many more that you were playing around with?
Yeah, always. We always go in with a lot of demos, a lot of ideas. There was like fascinated tracks we tried in the studio. There were other half kind of ideas. Ryan had like full songs he brought in, and I had full songs I brought in. Then we had combos, and that was kind of all over the place. We had some jam stuff that we did in the studio that didn't make it. Yeah, there's always like I mean, I've done Children Collide records where there was like 50 demos. I don't think it was that many, but there was a lot. It's good to have leftover ideas for the next one too.
Yeah. The current single is Man of the People, which I believe was an instrumental to begin with.
Well, I'd written it as an instrumental. I mean, a lot of things start as instrumentals. Yeah, I've just written that riff. I think I was thinking about the Stooges and Jesus Lizard, and I'd been like sitting in New York in about 2013. I think it was a stinky hot summer, just like no shirt on, like sweating in this crappy apartment, and I just was listening to all this stuff. And I think this whole album kind of has that, where I just was kind of going further and further back in music and in heavy guitar music, and thinking about where the bands I liked got their sounds from. And when I wrote that, I think I was thinking about that, and yeah, that's how it started.
My favorite track on the album is Mind Spider. Tell me how you built that.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites too. It's funny because we don't have a video for it or anything. I haven't thought about it so much in a while, but I need to go back and listen to that. It's kind of like you put a record out, you don't really listen to it. So, but Mind Spider is one of my favorites, if not my favorite. That song started, and this is kind of embarrassing to admit, it started when I first heard that band DMAs. I've been out of the loop of Australian music, and I heard them and I thought, they really need a song like Waterfall by Stone Roses. I might try and write them a song. I never said it to them. It was just like a stupid idea. I wrote this kind of, it was a lot faster. It had congas and organ and stuff, and it was like this and tambourine. And then obviously I never sent it to them because that's just dumb, and they don't need songs. They're brilliant songwriters. Don't need songs from me. And I threw it in the pile with the demos, and Lauren slowed it right down. Ended up sounding like the Smashing Pumpkins or something, with a psyche kind of tint to it. So yeah, and then the lyrics and stuff, it's about this person I loved who moved to New Zealand to become a polo shirt, and when the person I really respect, I think is amazing, but kind of made me feel crazy. And when we recorded it all live, and when I did that solo, I just remember closing my eyes and kind of really thinking about how crazy I felt at the time when I was with this person or breaking up with this person. And yeah, now I listen to that solo and it sounds like a crazy person making lots of random noises.
So what effect has the pandemic had on the album? Did it give you more time to tweak the songs, tweak them more than you normally would?
No, we were ready to go. We started putting this record out before the pandemic, and we were ready to just tour because we are, more than a lot of bands, live is our strength. That's our secret weapon, and that's our thing where we play and people are drawn to the band, and even more than our records, I think. So we're ready to do that, and we started putting it out, and then the pandemic happened, and it's like, what the fuck can we do? So then we made this series of 3 videos at the start that I wanted to make feel kind of live, which Man of the People is one of them. And it was based on the German beat club show that ran from the 60s to the 70s. Because it's like, for me, that's one of the best examples of live music, the feeling of live music being conveyed through a TV show. So yeah, I guess it's affected us in ways that we've not toured very much. And when we have, it's been amazing. We were lucky to get 2 tours in, 2 short tours, sold out, crowd surfing. I'm not sure if that was legal at the time, but there was crowd surfing at some of them. And yeah, it was like, that was really fun. We happened to just get to do those states when they were open. And then unfortunately we got to New South Wales, and then that kind of started to that was when it the shit started to hit the fan. But you know, I don't know. If in terms of positive things, I guess it's made us really appreciate it. Like, but I think this whole time of being away from Children's Blood and coming back to it has done that for me anyway. Like, I feel like I used to kind of get embarrassed when people would sing the lyrics, or get embarrassed at some of the more poppy or popular song moments in the set. Now I love that. I love hearing people sing it back, and I try it instead of like what I used to do is I'd just be obsessed with like, oh, my amp sounds weird, or like something happened earlier today. But now I just try and exist in the moment and be like, how cool is this? I wrote a silly song and a bunch of people singing it.
As I said earlier, the last time we caught up with you was 2010, the Theory of Everything album. I don't know if you remember, we caught up with you in Brunswick Street at Fretted Instruments, the music store.
I do remember that. That was, and they were my buddies as well. I love that store.
Yeah,
they did teach me a good lesson. I used to go in there and annoy them all the time. And you know, I was just a poor touring musician that likes guitars and used to try and get discounts off them. But I remember like that Paul, I think it was, going, you know, you're not our target audience. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, touring musicians aren't our target market. It's like dudes that work on like in the stock market, or as lawyers that come in on the weekend. They're the ones that can afford guitars. I'm like, oh yeah, I never thought about that.
Yeah, the purpose of that interview was to talk gear. Let's talk about the guitars and stuff that you used on this album.
Yeah, I need to like remember what the hell we used. We used a lot of old Fender stuff, obviously. I think we used an old Silvertone. And there was this weird little amp that I need to get Lauren to tell me the name of, that we just kept going to. We used, I don't know if anyone's going to hear it, but we used acoustic guitar on quite a lot of it. And I bet no one can hear it. But that has been like, yeah, that was a pretty good trick, what we did with that. And yeah, there was lots of kind of setting up feedback and really nice old drum kits. Really nice. It was the studio we used is called Diamond Mine in Queens, and you could probably look up what they've got in there. Or maybe studios don't put that up anymore. I don't know, but it's a really cool. Like on the wall, there was tapes of like just was it Sonny and Joe who wrote Baby?
Sonny and Cher.
No. Donnie and Joe, I think it is. There's like all this kind of old tapes of different bands on the wall, and then like next to that would be Lady Gaga. Then there'd be some like hip hop stuff, and but yeah, we tried to do most of it live, most of it's tape, and not for any reason other than our producer. That's the way he works best. He also works on like a computer. Like after the tape, you take it into the computer, and the computer he uses looks like it's running like Windows 95 or something even older. He runs this one program on it called Saw, and it looks like, oh, you know when you go through customs in the US and whatever screen they've got, like it kind of looks like that. Yeah, so it was a weird setup. Well, we hadn't really worked like that before. Most of the time we'd been, you know, with Pro Tools rigs and the kind of thing where if you fuck up, they'll just loop you or they'll drop you in or whatever. And there wasn't really much of that going on with this record. It was really like this kind of, you know, not that I prefer either, but it was interesting to work that way, especially as a band that hadn't played together for a long time. And the producer was really used to working with, like, I think he'd just like done some stuff, Arctic Monkeys or whatever, like bands that have been on the road every day forever. And it's so good. And Ryan and I just got there and we're like, oh yeah, we have not been doing this very much lately, have we? But I think that also brought this sort of sense of spontaneity into the room that it comes across.
Yeah. So you were more using the gear that was in the studio rather than your own?
Yes. Yeah, mainly. Yeah. But I'll often, yeah. Did I even bring my pedal? I don't think I even brought my pedal board. Yeah, no, I was using the gear in the studio. Yeah.
Yeah. So going out live, which hopefully you will.
We've been doing it, but yeah, hopefully we'll do more.
The stage rig, we have to change things up much to play this album?
No, in fact, I've gone back to more what we used to do. So because that third album, we were trying to do like backing tracks and shit at this, and it just did not work for us. It's not the kind of band we are. I guess we had to try it to know that, but it's just really gone back to, you know, a live 3-piece, loud distortions. The things I've added, I added a wah because I've got a couple of solos in there with wah. We haven't really done those songs that much, and yeah, it's like pretty much the same as I always used to have. I've got like 2 different distortions that I go between. One's a bit thicker and louder. One's a bit more kind of grittier and 70s. And I've got a couple of delays and reverb, a couple of reverbs. Yeah, and that's what I always did. Yeah. And still my crappy Jag that I don't know how it's still holding it together, and my Mustang.
It's the gaffer tape, isn't it, that holds the guitar
together? Yeah. I can still sing into the pickups. That still works, so that's good.
So tell me about Fascinator. What can you do with Fascinator that you can't do with Children Collide?
Everything. So the whole idea with it was to do the opposite. Children Collide got very, and understandably so, there's a lot of rules around it. There was no one's allowed backstage 20 minutes before and after, and no one ever gets on stage with us and plays with us, and all completely worked for that project. And it's kind of even towards the end, it was like producers and labels are telling us what the records should sound like. Not that we really listen that much, but still there's a lot of like opinions. Fascinator is the exact opposite. There's no rules. It's kind of, I say it's genre fluid. It's like I'd meet people meet someone on the street, they'd play flute with me that night. I had an air band for a while where I didn't have a band. I'd say, hey, do you want to play Barry Ballroom tonight? And someone would go, I've never been on stage in my life. I'm like, just get up and play air bass or something. So Fascinator has just been this kind of exploration, and it's sort of turned into this art thing as well, where I did a 24-hour soundtrack to a hotel room in New York, and now I'm working on this virtual reality experience where it's a bunch of pieces of music based on colors, and you're going to exist in this void. And but the record I'm doing now is with the same producer that did the Children Collide record, and we're sort of trying to make a DJ Shadow type thing where we're going to try and record a bunch of breaks and sounds to tape, and then put them back on an MPC, and then play the songs with samples back onto the tape again.
Sounds very cool. You've also been doing a bit of producing. You recently produced an artist called Tanza.
I did. I should love that she's getting a mention. That's great.
Yeah. Any more plans to produce other artists?
Look, I get asked from time to time if it's right. I honestly, maybe it's just like my experiences, but when she was like going to send that to me, I was like, I feel bad because like it's not like I didn't love her already, but I was like, the chances of me liking something enough to produce it aren't high, because I don't think I'd be good at it if I didn't love it. And I heard it, I'm like, oh my God, I fucking love this stuff. And it was because her and I had DJ'd a lot of the same queer party in Sydney called Heaps Gay, and I think she'd heard me play like a lot of disco, and she knew that I kind of knew a lot of the touchstones to her music. So when we got in there, we were kind of speaking the same language as far as like kind of quirky disco. And it was really fun. It was a long process. I'm probably a little bit pedantic to be a producer. I don't think I could pump things out really quickly, but yeah, it was really fun. And I would definitely, if it's the right project, I'd do it again. It's the same with music videos. Like people ask me to direct videos here and there, and it's now and then I'll say yes, and it's like when it's something special. Like I did a pond one, and that was really fun.
Yeah. Children Collide have got dates booked for November, and COVID willing, they'll happen.
And where are you based right now?
I'm in Melbourne.
I'm in Melbourne, yeah.
Yeah. So you're in New York now. You're not concerned you won't be able to get back?
Of course I'm concerned. I had a flight booked for September 8th back, and then like the second ScoMo announced that like 50% cut, it got cancelled. Now I am going to be out. I don't know how I'm going to try and get back in October now, because I think it's just better to wait at the moment. I'm just going to wait a month before I kind of work that out. But yeah, if the tour's going ahead at full capacity, I will make sure I'm back one way or the other.
When you look back at Children Collide's career, what are the things that stand out for you? It's funny because it took a few years away from it to think about what highlights and there were. There was one little pocket where 1 minute we were playing, like I lived in this dungeon in the share house with Ryan, and my room was a dungeon. You go to a trapdoor to get to it. I remember playing this crazy house party with everyone there, and it was all our friends and whatever. And I remember then we sort of went overseas, but not that long.
must have been a South by or something, and we came back, and I guess our songs have been getting played on the radio, and we sort of knew, but we didn't really think anyone cared that much. And we had a Splendor like afternoon set in a tent, and we walked out, and it was like to the edge of the tent, and then everyone was singing along to like some of the songs. And I at that point did not appreciate that as much as I should have, because I was like, that was one of those things where I'm like, my amp sounds funny. But thinking back on that, like that was a really amazing moment. I think we all kind of think about that moment sometimes. But another amazing moment was recently when we did this bushfire benefit with Pond and Bad Dreams in Adelaide, and that was like a few thousand people, raised like a couple $100,000, I think, and $100,000. And then just walking out to that, and that was like, I think our first kind of proper comeback. We'd done a little show in Sydney, but walking out to that was like amazing, and realizing it still works, realizing Ryan still have this and I still have this weird sort of psychic thing where we kind of accent each other without even knowing, like, and then Chelsea just working. I was worried, because he's such an important part of the band. I was worried that Chelsea would, might not be accepted or might not click, but man, people like her better than us. So yeah, that was a highlight, realizing it works again, it still works, and being in the studio, I'm like, oh, it's still got that thing. And I mean, maybe that's because we never tried to be whatever was going on at the time. So it's probably always going to be what it is.
Yeah. So if COVID disappeared tomorrow, what would the plans be for Children Collide and Johnny MacKay?
The plans would be we'd come back and we'd tour as much as we can. We'd probably do national tour of Australia that we've got booked. And then we'd probably try and come and do LA and New York, and then go back, and we'll probably keep touring Australia as much as we can, because it is amazing how people still remember us and come to the shows. And, we'd play somewhere just recently, and then 2 weeks later we play in Melbourne, and someone would be like, come to Melbourne. But we were just there 2 weeks ago. So I think we kind of need to do a few laps of Australia. But yeah, and then with Fascinator, I'll just keep doing it. I've got like albums and albums in my pocket now after COVID, because I just kept writing music. So I'll just probably be annoying my manager until the apocalypse. Let's put out another record. Let's do another tour.
All right, mate. It's been great to chat. Time Itself's out on August 27. We look forward to that, and we'll catch you next time.
Thanks, man.